Good morning and welcome to Sunday's Early Morning Intuitive Guidance. I'm Dr. Bonnie Nussbaum, here with some words of wisdom to start your day off well. And Sunday, allegedly being a day of rest, will give us an opportunity to think about this stuff a little more deeply. Good morning, Abigail. You are the first person here today. Welcome. Glad you're here. And we have another little chunk out of taking the war out of our words today. Good morning, Joe Neal. Good morning, good morning. People starting to roll in. Thank you for all the fun little icons there. Hello, hello. We'll give it a minute for people to pop in. And then I want to do something fun with this one today. I want to have us, so you can be thinking about a circumstance in your life where someone said something that you had a reaction to. Either because you thought, well, that's a pretty broad statement, or you thought, I wonder if they're talking about me, or you thought, well, that's insensitive. Whatever reaction you had to it, I want you to just think of maybe even a couple of circumstances where someone said something like that to you, or you said something like that, and maybe someone called you out on it, maybe they didn't, and afterwards you figured out, why did I even say that? Good morning, Cindy. Welcome. Glad you're here. But we're going to play around with a few examples of that because I think it will open our eyes to some communication things that are going on that if we respond differently will allow a deeper dive and will allow the person saying it to think a little deeper about it. This might be very useful given that the holidays are coming up. And many of us will be spending more time with family members. So, good morning, Gwen. Welcome. Glad you're here. So let us start with the breath, just to freshen ourselves up, open ourselves to receiving the information, deciding what's important for us to take away. Good morning, Bobby, my dear. How are you? Glad you're here. So let's start with the breath. In through the nose. Out through the mouth. Feel your shoulders drop. Feel your solar plexus release. In through the nose. Out through the mouth. Good morning, Beth. Glad you're joining us. In through the nose. Out through the mouth. Because we all can use some opportunities to figure out some different ways to communicate about the difficult stuff. And the example she uses in the book, in through the nose, out through the mouth, is one of those where she took a risk. She asked the harder question rather than going more simply. And you'll see how it created a very healing opportunity for someone. So, Taking the War Out of Our Words, The Art of Powerful Non-Defensive Communication by Sharon Ellison. Get my fingers out of the way there so you can see it. And I kind of feel like the universe is going to be sending us back to this book repeatedly lately because this stuff is so called for right now. We need to be modifying how we speak to each other and how we verbalize things, even how we think of them, even if it doesn't come out of our mouth. How are we thinking about this? Language is important. And this vignette that I'm going to share actually kind of played out the other day with someone. And I did not respond in these ways, but going back in my mind, which is what I'm going to have us do today, I think will set me up for the future being able to respond differently. So for those of you who have the book, we are on page 114, and it's basically formats for asking non-defensive questions. So I want you to, good morning, Mel, welcome, welcome, and welcome to those of you who snuck past me while I was glancing down at the book. So I want you to just listen with the intuitive part of yourself and pay attention to what scenarios from your own life pop up. If you got a pen and paper, jot them down because we're going to be working with a few of those once I read through this couple of pages. So this part, a format for asking non-defensive questions, talks about using first, second, and third person in the asking of the questions, and how different you may get for responses depending on which one of those you pick. You could run through all three. That might be interesting. That's what I'm going to have us do shortly, but let's just run with this and see where it takes us. By asking basically the same question with a focus on different grammatical subjects, first, second, and third person, we can gain an enlightening perspective on what someone is saying from varying angles. If your partner generalizes about people being manipulative, you could ask questions in any of the following formats. Third person, do you think all people are manipulative? You're asking about the generalization itself. First person, do you see me as manipulative? Asking about yourself. Second person, do you think you are manipulative? Asking about the speaker. Can you see how each of those is going to elicit different information and probably a different level of deep dive? When we talk in generalities, we often hesitate to bring the question home to ourselves, the two people in the conversation. And sometimes it's more people, which might make this even more interesting, right? People also frequently talk in the abstract without being aware of the effect it is having on someone who is present. So, a recent conversation when I was visiting friends was how a particular man was very derogatory about Indigenous people, despite the fact that his wife is an Indigenous person. Now, looking at this stuff, I wonder how aware he even was of what he was doing. Interesting. So, let's see where we go. During a retreat I facilitated for women over age 65, I was sharing a meal with two women, Clarice, who was thin and agile, and Emma, who was quite heavy and had a serious problem with her knees. Clarice remarked, I think that how people eat and exercise is important as preventative medicine to keep in shape and avoid health problems. Now notice, first of all, she didn't come from the shitty attacking position that oftentimes gets, all the negative, nasty stuff people say about other people with regard to weight and health and et cetera, et cetera. Even certain presidential candidates. Get that fat husband off the couch, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so she had given no apparent thought to the impact that her words about people keeping in shape might have on Emma. So here's the pivotal point. What direction does Sharon Ellison take this? Does she do third person? Do you think all people, blah, blah, blah? Does she do first person? Do you see me as blah, blah, blah? Second person, do you think you are blah, blah, blah? Here, she takes the deep dive. She goes for it. I asked Clarice, do you believe that if Emma ate properly and exercised, she would be in better shape and would have prevented some of the problems she is having with her knees? Asking about how a generalization applies to someone who is present is often difficult, including if we're asking it about ourselves. Do you see me as? I had to think for a minute about whether I wanted to risk it, and I took a deep breath before I asked the question. Clarice was horrified. Oh, no, she said, I wasn't talking about her. I just meant in general. She's not going to let it go. She's going to address this kindly and lovingly, but she's going to address this. I asked Emma how she had felt about Clarice's comment. Emma began to cry and replied, I felt so humiliated, and I felt angry, too, that she would make that judgment without knowing how many different kinds of problems people can have. It's just not that simple. I eat very carefully and ride an exercise bike for an hour and swim every day, but I have a metabolic disease and it is hard even to maintain the weight I am at now. Not only did Clarice realize how much she had hurt Emma, she was surprised to learn about Emma's regimen with diet and exercise. She recognized that she had been making a judgment about Emma without knowing it. And how much do we do this? Let me answer that. All the time. We just do. It's part of our human condition. But we need to bring that into the conscious mind. We need to be aware of when we're making judgments, right? Young people sometimes make judgments about old people. Old people sometimes make judgments about young people. There's all these characteristics of people that we use to box them in. Well, she's this, he's that, whatever. And it doesn't allow for expansiveness. What if she isn't that? What if he isn't that? What if it's much broader and more confusing than that? Again, part of the reason we do this is because we like to make sense of our world. But in attempting to do so, to get to certainty and out of uncertainty, we oftentimes do people a disservice, including ourselves. And we'll see where that fits in for Clarice here. Let's see. Emma was relieved to talk about Clarice's comment. Although she had often previously felt such judgments from others, she had just closed in around her pain in silence. Does that ring a bell for anybody? They're not going to get it. Why waste my breath? They just don't get it. How many times in your life have you said that within? They just don't get it. Yep. There we go. Yes, being told you didn't understand a computer program because you were old. How many times do we do that to ourselves too? I'm too old. You can't teach an old dog new tricks, blah, blah, blah. All this stuff. It's all out there. It's all swirling around. Let's grab a few pieces of it like she just did and make a point. And again, notice that Sharon isn't being pejorative. She isn't saying, Clarice, you bitch, how can you... That's not where she's going, right? She's trying to bring into the light this thing that was hidden so that it can have a positive impact on all of them. And watch what else comes up here. After Clarice sincerely apologized for how deeply she had hurt Emma, she had a spontaneous awareness. One of those quantum leaps. Clarice had always felt superior to her sister, who typically ate a lot and did not exercise. Clarice's own habits of eating and exercise had become a way to compete with her sister. And exactly, yes, that's not anyone I would hire either. But also keep in mind, good morning, CJ, welcome, welcome, haven't seen you in a while. Keep in mind that most of us do that stuff. Most of us do that stuff without being aware. We make assumptions. Men are this, women are that. Old people are this, young people are that. People with lots of money are this, people without... Republicans are this, Democrats are that. We make all kinds of assumptions that are flat out wrong. And so to check with people, good morning, thank you for the sunshine, I appreciate it. To check with people, check it, are you saying this? Do you believe that? Is this all people? You know, asking the questions. And again, the key is the neutrality. Like we're the curious observer. I wonder if. And we'll finish this up and then I'm going to have us practice. So, had been a way to compete with her sister, something she had never realized in all of her 72 years. Clarice commented that although she was shocked at first when I asked her directly about the effect of her statement upon Emma, 20 minutes later she realized it enabled a healing to take place. And not just a healing on one person's part, but at least on 3 people's part, right? My not asking the question wouldn't have prevented Emma's being hurt, and in fact asking it brought her feelings out into the open so that they could be resolved. So let's mess around with this a little bit, all right? So I want you to think about one of those circumstances where someone has made a judgment, kind of like the one that was just put up. We need to put this in, yes, we all need to put this into practice. And there I'm going to make a generalization. Because the vast majority of us aren't overly aware of this stuff and aren't overly aware of when we do this. I remember a CD that I listened to over and over and over again when I was going for directorship in Mary Kay. And one of the things that she talked about, basically the title of it was What You Talk About. and that you become what you talk about. So if you're talking about how terrible, horrible, awful it is, that's what you're going to be creating, and that's what you're going to be seeing. For the people who don't buy into the idea that we co-create our world, at least look at it this way. If you believe, I'm just going to pick one, if you believe all men are jerks and you're out in the world, what are you going to see? Jerky men. Why? Not because there aren't great men out there, but because your lenses are attuned to all men are jerks, right? If you believe the blonde women jokes, right? If you buy into that, what are you going to see? You're going to see women who happen to have blonde hair who do the things that align with what we believe. If, on the other hand, you believe hair color and gender has nothing to do with who someone is, then you can begin to see all manner of examples out there. You'll see bright blonde women, you'll see not so bright blonde women. You'll see bright blonde men, you'll see not so bright blonde men. You'll see bright redheads and not bright redheads, and you'll see the whole picture. Yes, we do feel it's okay to make generalizations, and the hard part is sometimes there's a little grain of truth in something, or we've seen an example, one example, right? So let's say we see a person with curly hair who's crabby. And so we go, well, all curly-haired people are crabby. And then we go out and about, and then we run into someone who has curly hair, and they're really nice. Then what do? You either have to change your paradigm, or you have to not really see that nice curly-haired person. So we negate people in order to hang on to our misperceptions. So I want you to pick something. Pick a situation in your life. So Gwen, it might be that one. You're too old to learn computer stuff. And let's run through all of these with that one. Do you think all people over a certain age don't understand computers? What do you think you would have gotten for an answer if you had asked that question? Probably a whole lot of backpedaling for one thing. But and then move it to first person. Do you see me as someone who doesn't understand computers because I'm older? And then second person. Do you see yourself as someone that when you get to be of a certain age, you're not going to understand computers anymore? And you ask them all neutrally. Pick one. And think about it. You've got a plethora of options there. You can pick the one that most makes the point that you're hoping to make. Are you seeking to bust the generalization? Are you seeking to divest yourself from that label? You're old, therefore you can't understand computers. What are you hoping to accomplish? And then pick accordingly. So let's pick another one. Any of you have one you want to throw out here for us to work with? Let me see what I can come up with. High school. I was little. And people wrote me off because I was little. My best friend was 6 feet tall. And her significant other and his family members liked to lean on my head. It was kind of a subtle put down, right? So the implication being small people can't do certain things. I was written off in gym class, one of the last ones to be picked because I was small. And so third person could be, do you see all small people as not physically fit, active, sports-minded, etc.? First person, do you see me as not able to contribute to our sports team? Second person, do you see yourself as not able to, as better at contributing to our sports team because you're taller? Asking the question in different ways is likely to get different answers. You guys have any? Any that you're wondering, oh, I wonder how I'd do that one? Pitch them out there. Pitch them out there. What I like about this practice is you can then see, well, asking this particular question gets me closer to the point I want to make. For instance, right now in our world, I believe we do have a lot of generalizations going on. Generalizations about Democrats, generalizations about Republicans, generalizations about immigrants, generalizations about Southerners, generalizations about Northerners, blah, 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 right? Really, I think we want to bust the generalizations as opposed to specifically how it applies to us. There's other times, like in the job situation there, we certainly would want to bust that misperception with regard to ourselves because it's going to interfere with our progress through this company. But in our life and times right now, I think we want to bust the generalizations. Yes, women are too emotional to be in charge of a team or a committee. And if I'm the person who is applying to be in charge of that team, I'm going to bring it right back to myself. Do you see me as too emotional to manage this team well? Put it out there. Bam. Mic drop. Right? Well, no, I'm not talking about you, blah, blah, blah. But it puts them on the spot, and they have to own their bullshit. And even if they say, well, no, I'm not talking about you. Okay, who are we talking about then? Blink, blink. Well, and then I would go to, can you think of any examples where there's a man who seems to be too emotional to be in charge of a team or a committee? Do you see any women that you know of who are managing committees and teams well? Keep posing the questions. Keep challenging the assumption. And you're not doing so in a baiting kind of a way. Well, what about so-and-so? She does it, and she does it great. She's better at it than you are. Because here's the deal. We all have this stuff. We have all been fed this stuff from little on. We have a ton of societal lore that we still buy into. And until someone breaks that, we're kind of unconscious about carrying on that lore. So let me just pick one that is more neutral in nature, except for those who are involved. The idea at one point that no human could run a 4-minute mile. The belief was, and of course at that point they were talking about men, no men can run a 4-minute mile. It's just not physically possible, blah, blah, blah. This went on for years and years and years. And then Roger Bannister ran less than a 4-minute mile. And then within a short span of time, several other people ran less than a 4-minute mile. Why? Because now it became possible in their minds. Can you see how we want to be very careful what is in our minds, what we allow to dwell there, because it's going to put unnecessary limitations on us. And I'm going to nail us on one. The I'm too old for. Bullshit. Bullshit. I don't care how old you are, you're capable of far more than you think you are, right? We are all capable of far more than we think we are. We need to get rid of that old excuse. I'm too old. It could be I choose not to. It could be I'm going to support someone else to do it. It could be I'm not willing to take the time, energy, effort to train to do that. All valid stuff. But I'm too old is not valid. Not valid, right? So, how will you apply this? How will you apply this? Moving around through, do you think all? So ask about the generalization. Do you think all? Ask about yourself. Do you think I? Blah, blah, blah. And then, do you think you? So if the person says, I'm just not smart at math, you can mess around with that. Asking a deeper question. How long have you felt that way? Why do you think you believe that? I don't see that in you. Why do you think you believe that? I'm not good enough to have a date. I don't see you that way. What do you think makes you believe that? What beliefs do you hold that make you believe that? And then you can mess around with this first, second, third. Keep telling me that. Yes, you keep telling you too, dear. Because really, I liked collecting the stories of the people who really didn't hit their stride until their 60s, 70s, 80s. Colonel Sanders. He didn't do the chicken thing until he was retired from his first career. Grandma Moses didn't start painting until she was way up in years. I don't want to say way old, because we've pejoratized the word old. It needs to be a descriptor. Okay, so there's another one. Fat. Fat has become a pejorative instead of a descriptor. If we say, well, it's that skinny person over there, we don't have the same reaction as if we say it's that fat person over there. How did that word get to all these connotations on it, as opposed to merely being a description? We've got all kinds of things in our language we need to clean up. We need to clean it up. So let's pose some questions here. If I let go of this belief, I'm going to pick one. If I let go of this belief that I'm too old, what will I do? What will I be choosing to do? How would my life look different? So, homework, Joniel, I want you to do a journaling exercise. I want you to write on that. If I gave up the idea that I'm too old, what would I do? What would I choose to do? What would my life look like? Paint the picture. Do it. So, we all have this stuff. I have this stuff. Absolutely, I have this stuff. So, we need to kindly and lovingly call each other out when we see it. Did you just say that? And that was the thing that was thank you. Good. Glad to hear it. That was the thing in the CD that I listened to by Joanne Barnes. She said, your friends call you out on that stuff. Oh, no, I know you didn't just say that to me. Okay. Nope. I'm gonna get rid of that. That is not a useful thought. Out it goes. All right. Be a good friend that way. Wait a minute. What did you just say? Okay, say it again. Is that going to help you get where you want to go? Hello, Lisa. Welcome. Happy Sunday. So this is our practice. Using first, second, and third person, asking the questions. Ask those painful questions and do so in as neutral a way as you can. You might have to practice that neutrality thing. Most of us do. But even just doing this, can you see how this is going to open stuff up? I'm just so excited. Can't wait to hear what some of you discover with this. So have an awesome Sunday. Diane and I are doing a late lunch and going to our second to last Harry Potter movie. And so I'm looking forward to that. Remember, you're capable of far more than you think you are. Bye-bye.